What is up, everybody? Welcome to another therapy session. In this one, I have a special guest with me, Rob from Ruler 2 Review. How you doing, man?
Good, man. I am super stoked to be back podcasting with you, buddy. It's been way too long and lots of fun stuff to talk about. So, yeah, man, thanks for having me back.
No problem. Now, the therapy session for this episode is going to be on Star Wars, the sequel trilogy. That is The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. Now, as you know, I am a casual fan of Star Wars series. I know the lore, but not as in deep as I would like Legend of Zelda, Metroid, and X-Men. But I know it. I'm just not as deep in it. That's why I have my good buddy Rob here. So he can help me out. He can smooth me out where I'm going wrong. So for this therapy session, we're going to start this off with The Force Awakens. Now, personally, I don't have that many issues with The Force Awakens. I do agree with some people, though, that it's kind of like more of a remake of A New Hope, which I can understand. But at the time, I'm like, dude, New Hope was what, 77? I mean, come on, dude. That's not really a straight argument for being like mad about it. I thought it was done fine to introduce new characters, but I did start to notice something that I feared was going to happen that did happen, and that was bringing back older characters that we love and then wiping them out,
getting rid of them.
Yeah, I'm like, I saw it coming in the movie. And I'm like, y'all not gonna do this, are you? You really? Oh, and by the way, this is gonna be full of spoilers, so don't start with me in the comments. Please don't.
Definitely spoiling. Yeah.
Yes. You had years. I've given you years. So, so bringing back Harrison Ford, I'm like, oh, because the first couple of trailers actually had me intrigued a lot. I will give them that. Like, Lucasfilm knows how to get you hyped for a movie. I mean, that's pretty much what they did. And the introduction of Finn and Poe and Rey, I'm like, okay, this is actually, I can see where this is actually going to be a nice little start off. I even love how they introduced Kylo, except for the fact that I don't like temper tantrums in movies when you're supposed to be a villain. And I'm sitting there like, okay, hold on. We've had Darth Maul, Count Dooku, Darth Vader, and now we got essentially a 6-year-old with a temper tantrum, and they gave him a lightsaber.
Yeah. I think I remember you talking to me about this way back because me and Ms. T actually did a podcast after Force Awakens came out.
Yeah.
And I think when you and I were like texting about it before we did that podcast, I think I remember you telling me something about you really struggling with the temper tantrum stuff from Kylo Ren. You were not into it.
Yeah, I wasn't, because like, and my problem with it was Vader, because Vader never did. Vader just straight up whacked you.
Yeah,
there was no temper, and he did it. And of course, it does help when you have James Earl Jones's voice saying lines before he kills you. It kind of helps, but like seeing, and then like when you see like Darth Maul, he was like the quiet killer that he was. Like, he was so smooth with it. And so I wasn't used to seeing that. I'm like, dude, what the? No, this is not cool.
Yeah.
Like, why are you? Okay, dude, you got emotional issues. I mean, okay, but it's not helping me. It's not helping to establish his evilness, because I'm just looking at him like, you're just a spoiled brat, dude.
Yeah.
And that kind of hurt it a little bit. But I was still intrigued by it. I was still intrigued and said, okay, you know what? Depending on how this goes, because we all know this is a trilogy, because they let you know from the jump that this is going to be a true trilogy. So I'm like, okay, I know 2 more parts are coming, so maybe they'll do something to, like, you know, deepen that out for me, and maybe get away from that. I never understood why J.J. Abrams went that route with Kylo, but once again, who am I to fathom the thoughts of a director? So. But I want to get your thoughts on that, the down and dirty about your thoughts of Force Awakens.
On Force Awakens, it's probably one of the hardest ones for me to talk about. I mean, I'm with you in a lot of senses, not in every sense, but in a lot of senses. Like, I mean, Force Awakens is a good movie, right? I think even the biggest like detractors and haters of the Disney trilogy usually say at least Force Awakens for the most part was just like a fun, entertaining flick. I like it. I think of the three, it's probably the one that I like the most, only from the sense that it's like the most consistent. It's like an even movie from the jump. It's exciting, it's interesting, and all the way through the movie, it's entertaining until the end.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a little bit of a trickery, though, because I think that my perspective on that movie is when it was the only one, kind of like how you were talking about, when it was the first and only movie, it didn't have the rest of the story for us to kind of watch it, at least in my opinion, fall apart, right? Like, I think it fell
Yeah.
apart. I'm pretty sure you agree. But when it
Oh,
was,
hell
yeah, right. But when it was the only one, it was like a fine beginning. It felt like just the beginning of an adventure. So it kind of had less to do. Its biggest job was setting up the new characters, telling us how Han Solo was involved in the story, and like letting us know about the gist of what the whole story of the trilogy was going to be. And in most senses of the word, I think it did do that. And I think that Ray, Finn, and Poe to me were also their most interesting in that movie. Well, maybe not so much true with Ray, but we'll get to that. I still
yeah.
think they were the most like acceptable. Like we liked them so much in that movie. And so even though it was like a remake of A New Hope, which is true, and it's a really valid criticism, I was kind of bothered by it, but it wasn't like ruining my day about it because what I saw JJ doing in that was trying to replicate what George Lucas did, where George Lucas always tried to have like a film symmetry between his two trilogies. There are
Mhm.
plot beats that repeat between like the older Skywalker and the younger Skywalker, and their lives have beats that kind of mirror each other throughout the two trilogies, which was awesome. And I think that JJ was trying to do what George Lucas did by having what he thought was like a mirroring of beats, but instead he kind of went too far and ended up just copying the movie almost outright. So it went a little bit too far, but that's okay. I don't have to see that as like the worst thing necessarily. And so I guess I don't know. I think that it was a fine, fun movie when it was the first and only movie that existed. I will say on the Kylo thing, um, I actually feel differently than you do about Kylo Ren, but I know why you feel that way. A lot of people did. They didn't like that. Some people thought Kylo Ren was cool, but a lot of people were like, he's just all emo and whiny and he's throwing temper tantrums, like you said.
Yeah.
And he does. So like I think it's a valid criticism for sure, but it doesn't really bother me. And it didn't really bother me at the time. Like, and I think the main reason is he is a Skywalker, and we've seen both young versions of the other Skywalkers also were like whiny, teenagers. They had to grow and they had to learn to become, stronger, confident men and Jedi.
That's
Anakin,
true.
yeah, Anakin, not so much in Phantom Menace when he's a little boy, but in Attack of the Clones, we know that was Anakin at his most whiny, his most teenager, his most, love struck and just silly and creepy. And then Luke in A New Hope knew nothing of the world and was really whiny and not too afraid to pick up his lightsaber and join the fight until his aunt and uncle are killed. And so that it was a Skywalker trait I think they were trying to put into Kylo Ren in that movie. And it was a little over the top, but for me, it kind of worked. And so, yeah. So overall, I mean, Force Awakens has problems, but I think just because it's the most consistent, it's probably the one I like the most.
I agree because there is the consistency there that I think you need because, like I said, everybody knows that this is a trilogy. So at this point, we're like, okay, we have a trilogy. The start off is good, not great, but hey,
Yeah.
the start off is good.
Yes.
Then we go to Last Jedi, and this is the movie where I have the. It's hard for me to put into words because I like the movie at parts, but I hate the movie, and the people that love it get on my nerves because these are the same people who hate other films for doing having the same issues that this one has. And that's what irks me the most because just because you wait 2 years to be like, oh, they came up with this, I'm like, no, the problem, the same issues are there. It's just the same issues. It's not like they changed the issues, like the issues suddenly went away because somebody came out and said, oh, well, if you notice this, and this, the movie makes sense. I'm like, no, but the same issues are there. Yeah. And my main issue is it doesn't take any of the beats from Force Awakens and does anything with. You are part of a trilogy, Rian Johnson.
Yeah.
You can't just come in and do what you want to do. It doesn't work like that. Now, if they promised you that you were going to get your own trilogy, that's fine, and nobody would begrudge you for that, because I watched Knives Out. Knives Out is amazing, so I know you're a competent director. That's not a problem. The problem is you are part of a trilogy. You have to follow those story beats because you need it, because all three movies need to flow properly story wise. And Last Jedi was literally, from a writing standpoint, from a dialogue standpoint, from a just visual standpoint, all over the place. It was just all over the place, to the point where there's whole segments of the movie that you can take out and you're not going to lose anything. Canto Bite?
Yeah.
You can take that. They could take that completely out of the film and you wouldn't lose nothing. You really can. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I'm happy that Disney was like, look, Kevin Feige's going to come over there and just make sure y'all stay on task.
Organize things and do,
Because a lot of people got mad with Kevin Feige about Patty Jenkins and Thor: The Dark World. Were you mad when you saw Infinity War and Endgame? No, because all those movies then made sense. At the time,
and Patty Jenkins also killed it with Wonder Woman, to be fair. So it worked out on both sides.
It worked out on both sides, but she wanted to do Romeo and Juliet, and they're trying to do Infinity War.
Yeah.
So he's like, look, I can't have you do what you want to do. We need you to follow this, because we're going towards something. So at that point, I'm like, okay, yeah, we couldn't see it at the time, because I'm gonna be honest, Thor: The Dark World sucked. But but when you get to Infinity War, when you get to Ragnarok and Infinity War and Endgame, that movie makes complete and total sense.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But at the time, no, it didn't. But they knew where they wanted to go. I don't know why Kathleen Kennedy said he could do whatever he wanted to do, because that was the wrong play. And you saw it in the film. The other issue that I had is this is the movie where they just wasted John Boyega. And John Boyega is an amazing actor. I loved him in Attack the Block. He's
so good. So I love that movie, man.
That's why I'm like, dude, this guy is not bad. Why are y'all doing this to him? And Force Awakens actually had already started him on the path to, like, he's a Jedi too. He has the Force too. But you go to Last Jedi and they're like, he ain't doing that.
He's just doing the spy thing. I would argue that what's kind of cool about Finn in Force Awakens is they definitely plant the seeds for the Jedi thing for sure. But I think that even if they didn't go the Jedi route, I think they also planted seeds for just a different cool story about being a stormtrooper and being able to break the shackles of that and like break free and like get out of the First Order and try to join the opposing fight. I think that could have been just as interesting. I mean, I prefer stories about Jedi and stuff to those kinds of stories. But I think that with Rey and Kylo Ren being the main Jedi conflict, I didn't necessarily need Finn to be a Jedi, although I would have totally been okay with it. But it's like they could have basically gone either way. Let's focus on him being a stormtrooper and breaking free. Let's focus on him discovering that he has the Force and is going to be a Jedi. And they could have done either of those, but they literally avoided both paths and did just something made him just kind of like a side plot character.
And I think that's the other thing too, because if you were to tell me, okay, we're not going to make him a Jedi, but what we're going to do is he has the Force, and that's how he was able to break free, and we're going to show a different way of how the Force can be utilized.
Yeah,
and that is going to help him and Rey in their fight. Then okay, fine. I am cool with that. That's why I don't get mad when I see John Boyega straight up throwing shade. I'm like, he does. Of all people has the right to throw shade at them. I'm sorry. He has the right to do it because they totally misused and wasted his character. They basically made him thirsty.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I'm like, okay, dude, first of all, I understand why, because the main killer about the Finn and Rey thing is in Force Awakens, they established that that's the first human friend she ever made. Yeah. Which means she's not she wasn't around human beings like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I can deal with that. They also established,
and neither was he though,
neither
too.
was he,
So
yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, I mean, he literally meets two people, Poe and Rey, in the first like hour that he's free,
Yeah,
and he
and
connects to them.
and he doesn't remember anything else other than he was in the First Order. That's all he remembers. So they mind wiped him good. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, you have two characters who've never been around people, and you're like, okay, cool, we can do something with. And then on top of that, they have the greatest chemistry of all time. Because if you see them like off camera,
Yeah.
and then you see them like, dude, Daisy Ridley
They're
and John
great.
Boyega are awesome. So
I
that's
love
what I'm saying. I'm like, okay, cool, we got that. In Last Jedi, they decide not only do they decide to split them up, they have them split for the entirety of the movie. And I know people are going to hate me for saying this, but at the end of the film, when she shows up to move the rocks out of the way so they can get out, there is more chemistry between John Boyega and Daisy Ridley in them 2 minutes than there was on the onset of anything in that movie.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say, I have one counterpoint to that, because and it sucks. Like, I wish that they were together more in that movie. Don't get me wrong, but to be fair, if you look at like The Empire Strikes Back, our heroes are pretty separate in that movie as well. I think people forget that.
I will give you that.
Yeah, Luke is not with Han and Leia at all until the very end of the movie, where after he's fought Vader and he fell through the shaft, and then they come and rescue him after they have Lando too. I mean, literally the very beginning on Hoth, and then the whole movie, they're on completely separate journeys.
But here's the thing that I would counterpoint to that is the way they cut that movie, they didn't make it seem as bad.
It's just a better movie. Right? So that helps.
The way this movie is cut, it feels like an eternity because she's already gone when Boyega wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, she's already gone. So I'm like, okay, that's cool and everything. Then you have this. I still don't understand Canto Bite. I'm sorry, I don't get what the purpose of that was. That was 30 minutes they could have gave me back.
Yeah, I think that I mean, I've thought about this a lot, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of just like jumping in, I guess, with my opinion on it, but I feel like what they were trying to do with Canto Bite, to me, feels like they were trying to do two things at the same time. They were trying to show a more fleshed out world and remind you that the universe of Star Wars is really big and it's full of all these different kinds of people and these crazy characters and alien races, which we barely see in the Disney trilogy. Barely any alien, and it drives me crazy. I know crazy too, man. Yeah, I know this is kind of like a let's rag on the Disney trilogy podcast, but to do that, one of my biggest complaints of the whole thing is how it's mostly just a bunch of humans. And like Star Wars has always been overpopulated with alien races to make it feel like a bigger galaxy. And it's peppered throughout the Disney trilogy, but it's not like organic. And
it doesn't feel good. You don't feel like it's lived in.
No, you're right. That's it does not feel lived in. That's perfect. It's exactly how I feel, dude. And so I think in Canto Bite, they're like, here's just a room with just bunches of aliens. So we'll just throw them all into one room for a scene. And then I also think it was trying to make it feel like the movies are saying something, about reality, because George Lucas, all 6 of his movies were allegories on different aspects of like real life war and real life politics. And real life struggles of people. Like, I mean, even the alien races were meant to emulate the fact that there's different races of humans and that there's segregations and we look at people differently and we treat them differently and it's a bad thing. And so that's what he was trying to do with that stuff. And in Canto Bite, I think that they were trying to say, well, let's take another part to human struggle and it's the classism. It's that, people have, different classes, like the rich and the powerful are doing these things and the poor and the weak are struggling beneath them. And so let's talk about that. And then let's also talk about animal rights suddenly out of nowhere. Which is
out of nowhere.
Yeah, like and it's like we care about animal rights. We want good things for animals, but that's not like the kind of human struggle that makes sense in like a 10-minute Star Wars scene, right? Like and so they were trying to do what I think George Lucas did. Like he was telling great allegories on the struggles of humankind and make it work in his fantasy space thing. And I think that they tried to do the same thing with Canto Bite, but it just came off totally just cheesy and it conflicted with the rest of the movie, right?
it conflicted so bad. It's about as bad as X-Men Apocalypse thrown in the Wolverine breakout for no apparent reason.
Yeah, I kind of like that scene, but only because I liked Wolverine, not because it made sense.
See, that's the issue. Like, I'm like, okay, Wolverine isn't in that movie at all, except for those 5 minutes, and then he's not in it again.
Yeah.
So basically, you threw a scene in for no reason, and that's how I felt about Canto Bite. You throw a scene in, and you're like, it would be all right if it went somewhere. It didn't go anywhere. You basically have Alien Las Vegas.
Yeah, Alien Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I'm just like, okay, that doesn't go in. Now another character they completely wasted is Brianna Tarth. I mean, Captain Phasma.
Yeah. Oh man, Captain Phasma. Do you remember how much hype and excitement there was for what that character could have been?
I'm sitting there because at first I'm like, oh, they're gonna go into her backstory. She's gonna be a Mandalorian. She's gonna be Trill. Nope. They ain't do nothing with her.
Do you want to know one cool thing about her though? It's not included in the movies, but it's in in the extended lore. It's talked about in one of the novels.
Okay.
So her outfit, it's like silver and shiny.
Yeah.
It's actually made out of wreckage from Queen Amidala's Naboo ship.
That would make sense.
Yeah, because remember how that's like a really shiny silver. I don't remember the main details, but I do know that wreckage eventually she turned it into her suit. So I thought that's kind of cool.
See, that's the cool thing. That's the thing. I'm like, okay, and then they actually kill her. You're like, they didn't kill Captain Phasma. She gonna be a Rise of Skywalker. No, she ain't.
No. Honestly, though, I got to tell you, not to jump ahead to Rise of Skywalker, but it actually, to me, even though I didn't want her to die the way she did, since they killed her in Last Jedi, it would have been even worse if she came back a third time, to be fair. So the smartest thing, I mean, it was dumb to kill her, but once they killed her, the smartest thing to do was to just leave her dead, Yeah,
because at the same time, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that could have been a cool story, once again, that you could have had with Finn. If you didn't want to do anything with him, that's his adversary. Yeah. Now, he ain't got a chase behind being thirsty after Rey.
Yeah.
And getting pretty much no attention. So have him, if you're not going to do, if that's where you're going to go, and like I said, I'm not in the writing room with them. If that's how you're going to go, fine, but give him somebody, because you have two actors who are awesome at their job and you're wasting them.
I mean, all the actors are good in the movies. That's the thing, and like good actors and having good acting obviously is nice and helps your movie.
Yeah.
But you need something more underneath too to complement it. It can't just be surface level, like it looks pretty and the actors are good. I think to be the complete package of a good movie, you also need the meat underneath, which is kind of what. Now, here's the thing, though. I guess I'll kind of jump a little bit into my bigger picture thoughts on The Last Jedi. Okay. I will say that I think The Last Jedi is the movie, and I know it's controversial because people hate it, but I think it's the one that gets the closest to capturing some of the spirit of Star Wars and Lucas's approach to like themes and storytelling and how the Force manipulates how we operate. And so my feeling with The Last Jedi is overall, I do like the movie. Same with like Force Awakens. Like overall, I do like the movie. I think that what I struggle with Last Jedi is I do think some of the stuff we're talking about here, like, inconsistencies with Force Awakens is a big problem. Losing plot points and plot beats like Finn is a huge problem. And I also think that that a lot of the side stories are just really boring in that movie. It's not that they're boring. Yeah, the whole out of gas thing with Leia and Holdo is boring. Canto Bite is boring. But I think that everything with Rey and Kylo Ren and even Luke, I don't even hate Luke in this movie. There's a couple things around him that I hate, but I don't hate Luke in this movie. So I think all of that stuff is freaking awesome. I loved Snoke in this movie. I loved the interactions between Kylo Ren and Snoke, and then the whole throne room scene with Snoke, Rey, and Kylo Ren. I think all that stuff is fantastic. I think that Rian Johnson was getting close to tapping into really what Star Wars means. I think he really did a good job with that. The biggest problems I have are like, there's the boring stuff, like I said. I think that on a minutia level, I think Luke throwing the lightsaber in the beginning was a horrible choice.
That was stupid.
It was so dumb.
Yeah,
what a horrible
on that part.
what a horrible payoff. That was the
Yeah.
cliffhanger to your last movie, and the payoff was that. And that to me really broke the fourth wall of like, okay, you're just being stupid to people watching these movies. And then I also think killing Luke at the end wasn't necessary. I don't think he needed to die at the end of that thing.
No.
So I really, really struggled with that stuff. But all the in between with Luke and Kylo and Rey and that whole plot was really, really fascinating to me. And it was a great exploration of the Force and the dark side and who is Rey, what he was doing with Kylo Ren's kind of internal struggle felt very Skywalker. It felt very Anakin and Luke to me. Really, like that's the meat of Star Wars, I think, is present beneath all the layers of crap in The Last Jedi. But because it's so uneven, that's why I still don't love the movie. If the rest of the movie felt as even and interesting as the Kylo and Rey stuff, I think it would have been a great movie. But it's half really cool and half just boring and dumb and inconsistent. And so I will say this too, my last point. I don't even blame Rian Johnson the way a lot of people do. I think it's more the studio. Like you kind of touched on a little bit in the beginning with like Kathleen Kennedy, why did you let him do what he wants? And that's why it's like, well, to be fair, the studio told him to do what he wants. So he just made his movie with like a base knowledge of what Force Awakens was. I think Lucasfilm and Disney made the mistake of not planning the movies and telling each filmmaker to just do whatever they wanted. You can't really blame the filmmaker for following that order, because I think like if The Last Jedi was the exact same movie it was, but if Rian Johnson also made episode 7 and episode 9 around it, I think it would have been phenomenal, right?
Well, that's the thing. It would have been, but I'm sorry to cut you off, but like you, I think that the issue is if you don't have a plan, you don't move forward.
No, you don't. You nailed it.
And they moved forward with no plan. Now I agree. Like there are parts of Last Jedi I love, like the throne room. I love that. The back and forth between Rey and Kylo. Notice I said Rey and Kylo, not Rey and Ben. We'll get into that in a minute. I like that because I can see where they're trying to go with this. What I didn't like, everything they did with General Hux. What I didn't like,
God, yeah, that was so dumb.
Yeah, everything they did with him, the stuff, the Canto Bight stuff, the actual just destroying John Boyega's Finn character.
So sad.
Making
what do you think about what do you think about Rose?
I liked Rose, and here's the problem: a lot of people got mad at Kelly Marie Tran. I'm like, what are you getting mad at her for? She's
so dumb.
She didn't write this.
No,
she did not write this. Okay, now I did not like the forced kiss. I didn't like that. I did not like because I'm like, okay, first of all, no. Second of all, hell no. And third of all, what the hell were you thinking? Writing that in? I'm like, what were you thinking? Like, I'm sorry, Rian Johnson, you're gonna have to take the blame for this one. You cannot sit up there and tell me you did not look at the dailies and said, that works.
Yeah, it was rough.
It didn't work. At no point did that work. So I don't mind her. Like I think she was a badass. I'm like, okay, she went and doing badass stuff, and I'm sitting there like, okay, that came out of nowhere. This whole forced thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no real problem with Rose in the movie until the end, where it's like I think her stopping Finn from destroying the laser was a mistake. Yeah. And I think that her and the kiss scene was a mistake. But I'm kind of with you. Like, she's a bit of a badass before that. She's just a fine character fulfilling the role of like, let's try to stop the signal or whatever from Snoke's ship. Let's stop that. And so that's the mission she goes on, and she's like a totally fine character. She's a little bit goofy. She has like some dumb comedy, but like nothing that I think is too bad.
Yeah, nothing is bad, but it was just the problem was she was badly written in those two spots. And once again, like Finn, if you once again wasted. If you're gonna take him out with the laser, because at least have him go out like a hero, because you're not doing nothing with him.
Oh my God.
Literally not.
Well, it's so here's the thing. I mean I liked Finn enough even in the movie to not necessarily like want him like out of the
Yeah,
movie. So kill him.
but they weren't doing nothing with him.
They weren't. No, you're right. He just was like he was just the Phasma fighter. That was it.
Yeah,
But that you're so right on that scene. Like if he had gone out with that laser, it would have been the dopest hero move. It was, I mean, I remember watching it and having chills thinking like, oh, this is it, man. He's gonna go out and he's gonna blow this up and he's gonna save them. Like it was, and then it was gonna leave room for what we thought was gonna be a lightsaber fight with probably Rey and Kylo Ren before we knew Luke was gonna show up. It's like, here we go, man. Like Finn's about to do it. And I was like pins and needles thinking this is it. Finn's gonna die. And then
you know what?
Well, go ahead. What?
I just thought of something. If they would have did that, that would have made her mad enough to actually have a reason to fight Kylo like crazy, like she would. Oh my!
So true. Yeah, there's
Rob,
a lot of
just
things,
fixed it. Rob, you really just fixed Rise of Skywalker. You know that, right?
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. You're welcome.
You really just fixed it when you think about it.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying you really just fixed it when you think about it because Rise of Skywalker has stuff that makes no sense as far as her and her anger. But if you kill Finn, the first human friend she ever made, and that will give rise to her getting angrier and angrier because you'll be like, this is your fault.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You took my friend from me, you know, or maybe somebody she loved. Like they could have gone either angle and I would have been okay with it. Yeah. You know,
because it would have made sense. That makes more sense than what they did. We're finna get to that right now. But more sense than what they did. But I'm like, if they would have did that and pulled the trigger on that, like I said, I hate that we had to waste John Boyega for it. But one, John Boyega would have got out his contract. Two,
yeah,
he would have had.
He wanted to be in another movie and make that money, though, man. He got, he got.
But at the same time, you gave him the most badass moment in the whole trilogy.
It really. It's like if you watch it again and you watch that scene play out. If you imagine that as he's driving up to that laser, and you can see it, his face, like he acts it. His face is like, this is it. I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to die and blow this thing up and save my friends. Like he's ready. Yeah. And if you play it out in your brain where he does it, it is just, I mean, I almost get chills thinking about it, dude. It's like so epic. And I know what they're trying to do with the Rose thing, but the problem is like the philosophy she has throughout the rest of the movie doesn't line up with her choice to stop him. Like
it really doesn't.
It doesn't. It conflicts with what she feels out throughout the rest of the movie. It's like you should have let him do that. Why did you stop him? That's not what you've been conveying the whole flick up until this point. But, they're like, oh, but we want to have a love story, even though, the next movie throws that love story out the window anyway. They don't even go anywhere with that. But they I mean, right. So, I know it's so frustrating. It's like, anyway. So, yeah, that's just how I feel about that.
Yeah. Okay.
But I do want to still say, sorry, just last thing. I still don't hate The Last Jedi, though. It's an okay, pretty good movie with some phenomenal stuff and a bunch of boring stuff. That's my big thing with it.
It's not. And that's what I'm saying. Like when I tell people, like, look, Last Jedi, I was just like okay with it. That's why I'm like, it's some good, some bad, and just some I'm just scratching my head over. Just because I'm like, I'm not a movie. I'm not a filmmaker, and I wouldn't have made them decisions. I just like to watch movies, and I know when stuff don't work. So if I'm looking at it and can tell it don't work, how the hell can you, with 20 plus years experience, be looking at it at the dailies and not tell us? I don't understand that. But
I know, man. Well, here's the thing. I mean, unless you're in a hurry, we've got like 30 minutes still. Yeah. So I do want to ask one thing. We have to, before we move on to Rise, we should at least talk about Kylo and Luke and that whole thing. Like that's the big climactic moment to the movie. So what are your thoughts on that whole thing?
Here's my problem as far as that is concerned. They did not handle that well. They planted the seeds properly, in my opinion, in the beginning by showing Luke, like from his point of view, Luke trying to kill him.
Yeah.
I like that, but the thing is, they didn't really expand upon it because you only saw one point of view from Kylo's point of view.
Yeah.
And when Luke shows up, I don't think Luke should have force projected. I think Luke should have been there.
Yeah, I mean, most of us wanted that.
Yeah, like Luke should have been there. That should have been Luke fighting him. Not that way. and once again, like I said before, when we started this, I don't like the fact that they brought the characters back just to kill them. I didn't like that. I'm like, no, don't do that. Like, don't do that. You can have it where Luke's just like, look, I'm here to be a barrier for them to get away, but you ain't killing them, and you can't, and you can't kill me.
Yeah.
But I'm not. This ain't my fight. This is her fight. Or what I'm saying, if you want to go that route. I know some people probably wouldn't have liked that, but you could have easily found a way to even have it where Hux tries to kill Luke and Kylo stops him. That way you would have had some you could have showed the side of Ben showing up. Notice now I'm saying Ben. You could have showed the side of Ben Solo showing up and being like, no, you're not doing that. Because that's literally his uncle. So you could have showed that side of Ben. The problem, and this is leading me into Rise, is the issues that I have with people trying to make excuses for the Kylo situation is, one, they never showed us the side of Ben Solo. You never heard that. You never saw it. You didn't really even hear it. Really. You know his name was Ben Solo before he changed it to Kylo Ren.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so you mean the side of his story like from before the Force Awakens started?
Yeah, like okay, you never heard anything, like even in the original, you heard stories of, remember Obi-Wan telling Luke about Anakin.
Oh yeah, one of the best scenes. Like your father was the best star pilot in the galaxy, and he was a good friend.
And I don't need like full on scenes, but you do need to have those dialogue beats at the very least, because
yes, I agree. Yeah,
we didn't get that.
So right, the dialogue beats like that make such a difference, because even if you're not going to get flashback scenes or whatever, you get the world building and how characters that live in this world talk to each other. And so I just agree with you 100% how that could have changed the context of stuff.
And the fact that they completely trolled us with the Knights of Ren.
Yeah, they did. And but here's the thing. It's a troll by accident, though, because I think that, like, if JJ would have made all the movies, for example, I think the Knights of Ren would have been a huge part of the story. Yeah. But he didn't. So by the time the next filmmaker picks up the second movie, he decided which plots he liked and which ones he didn't like. And so he followed the ones he liked and he ignored the ones he didn't care about. And obviously the Knights of Ren was something he just didn't care about.
Yeah.
So they're literally mentioned in one line from Snoke in the entire movie.
And that's it.
That's it. And so it wasn't a troll, because I don't think that the plan when they started these movies was to like introduce them but not actually give us anything. Yeah. I think that JJ probably maybe just assumed that the next filmmaker was going to pick up the Knights of Ren thing, but he just happened to not do that. So,
well,
you know what I'm saying?
Because I just think that was a waste, because once again, here we go. You have something that can be another threat. Not on the level of Kylo, but like right below him, and can make him even bloodthirsty. Make him bloodthirsty where Kylo ain't bloodthirsty, but they kind of bloodthirsty, because they like, nah, man, bump that. We got the Force too, and I ain't about to throw no tantrum. I'm gonna cut your head off.
Yeah, they could have. Well, and here's the thing: the insinuation early on, like when Force Awakens was out, was that the Knights of Ren were fellow students from that Ben was learning from Luke at his Jedi temple with, like, and so the idea was like, Ben and a bunch of students were just students, and Luke was their master teacher, and then Ben and Luke have a falling out, and Ben convinces them to come with him, and become his prodigies and his little army of Force sensitive dark side people.
Yeah,
and so that was the theory, and like that is so dope. But they turned out to just be nameless nobodies with staffs, and just
that's it. Which made once again that's another thing that probably should not have been dropped. But that's where I am with that. Because now that we're into Rise of Skywalker, this felt like people at Disney paid attention to shippers, and they paid attention to fanfic people. And then they tried to say, while not saying that they're trying to course correct, which I'm like, no, you can't course correct because now you kind of have to go. A trilogy needs to flow.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, once again, no, I'm not sorry. Kathleen Kennedy and Disney, y'all should not have told your directors they could do whatever they want. You shouldn't have. You should like, look, you need to stay to what this is. Now, if that means you just want to work on your story that we're gonna let you work on, fine. Let us know that up front. We'll find somebody else.
Yeah.
Because there are other directors that will kill to have a shot at Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, if you think I'm lying, on Disney Plus, there's a thing called Gallery. Watch that. It's the back scenes.
What is
from
that?
That's the back scenes from Mandalorian, where they go into the behind the scenes stuff. It's called the Gallery.
Yeah.
Go check that out and see if I'm lying. But that's the thing. I'm like, people would love to. Now in Force Awakens, in Rise of Skywalker, this is probably the most weirdest movie to put together because now we have no idea of time, but Rey is off the chain. Apparently she's she's got her full white on now.
Yeah, she's just a badass.
Yeah. So we once again have no idea of how much time has passed. Kylo done reformed his helmet. Okay. Finn, Rey, and Poe are now hanging out together. Okay. All right. Fine.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. Even though, once again, that's neither here nor there. We're going to go with that. But this film now brings in the biggest issue that I've had with this trilogy. They brought back Palpatine, but when they brought him back, they're trying to tell me that he survived being thrown down a thermonuclear shaft.
Yeah.
While being electrocuted and exploded. I'm sorry. He's not Darth Deadpool. Okay.
Yeah.
So no, if you were gonna go the clone route, which I think they should have done. I love you, Ian McDiarmid, but they should have went with went with the clone route because in some of the expanded stuff, that wasn't the only thing they made on Kamino.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's a cloning facility, so they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, so Sidious had himself cloned, I think a couple times, depending on which story you read. But that's what they should have done. They should have had a younger Sidious in his prime, basically.
Yeah.
Instead of having the old guy who you're trying to convince me survived, once again, being thrown down a thermonuclear shaft, electrocuted, and blown up.
Yeah.
So
it's a big leap.
That's when you have to really take yourself out of the I just can't follow that plot point. I just have to go with it. If you wanted to say Snoke cloned himself, that would have been fine for me. I would have been fine with that. The other thing too is I love the Clone Wars animated series.
Yeah.
And in season 6, Yoda goes to Exegol. So I kind of I'm a little shocked that they went that route, even though we've already seen it if you've been watching the series. So apparently the Sidious has time to not only rebuild the Empire, he's rebuilt like 3 million Star Destroyers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I don't know. I even run out of thoughts when it comes to this thing, man.
And they only had 30 years to do this, by the way. Yeah. They only had 30 years now.
That's all they had was just 30 years. Yeah. I think my whole thing with focusing on the Palpatine thing, man, my feelings have been, first off, I don't like Rise of Skywalker. It's the only Star Wars movie I straight up just don't like. I have no love for it.
You're not alone in that sentiment.
I know I'm not. And I am the biggest cheerleader for Star Wars. I try my best. I mean, I'm not in the business of disliking Star Wars. Okay. Yeah. It's tattooed on my body. I've stood up for the prequel trilogy since the day those movies came out. I even stand up for The Last Jedi. Okay. In some respects. So I'm not in the business of disliking Star Wars, but The Rise of Skywalker is not a good movie to me. And if we focus on the Palpatine thing specifically, I think I've thought about it a lot. And I'll admit, I don't even think the idea of bringing him back is a bad idea. I think it's actually a fine idea. I just don't think that they executed it properly at all. I mean, there's no explanation. And the
None.
only explanation they do give, here's the problem. This is almost worse. They try to explain it away. If you remember from Dominic Monaghan's like off kilter law, he's just like, he's like cloning, dark science, Sith magic, that kind of stuff. That's it. Yeah. That's the close. That and the fact that there's like a vat of dead Snoke clones right next to him. And that it drives me crazy because not only does it show that they never planned for Palpatine to be there, that it was it shows that it was a last minute addition. It also is a wasted opportunity to bring Palpatine back in a Star Warsy way, which is the obvious thing, which is to say that Darth Plagueis taught him how to cheat death. Okay, don't make it a cloning and dark science thing and not even explain that. Make it a Force dark side thing, a Star Wars Force thing where Sidious's old master, who he tells us about, Darth Plagueis, actually did teach him the secrets to cheat death. The great thing is, if they do that, they don't even need to give us the details. There can just be a scene with a couple of dialogue points where it's told to the audience his old master, Darth Plagueis, whose goal in life was to learn how to cheat death and stop people from dying, actually did teach him, and Sidious was keeping that secret the whole time. And like, there's your out. There's your explanation for how Palpatine is back. But instead, they give us a vat of Snoke clones, and then he's just like, I'm back. And it just really makes the whole thing crumble for me.
And here's the funny part. Now, I know there was a meme going around after the whole reveal that Rey was a Palpatine, and the meme is funny, but it was like it's a guy that's sitting up thinking, and he's like, "Who the hell smashed Palpatine?" So,
yeah, I know.
You're like, so it's one of them situations where you're like, okay, look, like I love the Plagueis idea. Because once again, like you said, that makes sense. Or you can have him, you can do the cloning thing, and you just say, okay, he cloned himself, but he's Sidious in his prime, not an old withered man.
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing is, I don't know if you know this or not, but they did confirm after the movie came out, like in a comic or something, that it actually is a clone. It was confirmed.
My God.
Yeah, but it was like not in the movie, and so it didn't make any sense. And then to your point, if it is a clone, why didn't he clone the younger version of himself? Why did he clone the older version of himself?
Because the younger version would have walked the dog on Rey and
yeah, true.
That's why, and we wouldn't have the end to this. So.
Yeah. Well, they missed the perfect, and the Plagueis thing serves another route. Not only does it make sense for why he's back, it also fully wraps in the other movies, which Rise of Skywalker failed to do. Like they claimed it was going to, but it really didn't. It didn't wrap in anything. The only movies it wrapped in was Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. It didn't have anything to do with the 6 older movies, really.
No, it really didn't.
That would have been a way to make it feel like the plot threads we've been following, since the 70s and since the early 2000s are all coming together. Plagueis had an influence on the last movie of the Skywalker saga. That could have worked. And instead they didn't do that,
Yeah. And then my issue once again is Finn constantly thirsting after Rey. And then
they brought that back.
Yeah, they brought in characters that they should have brought in Last Jedi. Janna, like she's a cool character. She should have been in Last Jedi. That's where you should have introduced her.
Had more screen time. Yeah.
The other thing is Rose now gets a whopping 76 seconds of screen time.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah, I know. It's like less than 2 minutes, right?
Less than 2 minits. Like she has a whopping 76 seconds of freaking screen time. Kelly Marie Tran. That is ridiculous. And then kill of all killers is you expect me to believe. Okay, so let me preface it like this. Hollywood has been telling us for years that, we need to stop toxic relationships, that's just not cool. Domestic violence isn't cool, all of that. You have 2 characters that you have not set up to have done anything but have an antagonizing relationship. So much so to the point where they try to actively kill each other. Mm-hmm. Actively. with Rey actually giving him a killing blow, but then she turns around and heals him, which makes me believe that was a rewrite because that makes me believe that was a rewrite. But she actively kills him. Then at the end of the movie, when they supposedly win, they tongue kiss, and she in love with him. But then this is why I get mad at shippers, because the shippers got happy, and I'm like, okay, but that makes no sense. Well, she's in love with Ben. They never said anything about Ben Solo.
Yeah.
How can she be in love with Ben when the first human friend she ever made was Finn, and so she doesn't know anything about relationships like that. She's just had a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't know anything about that. Two, then they try to, like, after people call them out on it, they say that's a kiss of friendship. Rob, let me ask you a question. I have a lot of female friends. I ain't never kissed one of my female friends in the mouth, and that was a kiss of friendship. Now, kiss on the cheek, yeah. But I ain't never heard no kiss in the mouth being no kiss of friendship. Now, I've heard kiss in the mouth being something else.
Yeah, I was about to say, it can go that direction.
Yeah.
But then it's no longer a kiss of friendship.
That's not a kiss of friendship. But they get called out, and now they try to turn around and say it's a kiss of friendship. No, it's not. Yeah. And
no, that was a passionate kiss. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the thing is, none of that is set up. And on top of that, you are doing it with a toxic relationship which I thought we were trying to get away from in films. So like literally not 20 minutes before, she ran him through.
Yeah. She sure did.
Am I crazy?
No, it's honestly the whole thing reeks of just last minute trying to change things and trying to appease as many different people as possible.
Yeah.
Which isn't like bad by default, but clearly you have to do it in a specific way. And they obviously just did it the wrong way. And they let the story and the natural paths of the characters go to the wayside for the sake of just forcing just a bunch of things in at the end. I mean, even the way the fight with Palpatine happens and she hears all the voices, and then Kylo Ren shows up, and then they fight, he dies, she comes back, they kiss, and it's like, what are you guys?
Dies.
Like, so am I, and then he dies. It's like, man. And like the way it all wraps up really solidifies what the whole movie is, which also then solidifies the whole trilogy. And what that is it, to me, all of this stuff solidifies how these movies, specifically Rise of Skywalker, but on top of that, the whole trilogy, are not really sequels to the first six, and they're not really part of the Skywalker saga because they're just not. Like, I can buy them. I've laid this out before. I can buy them as canon side stories that happened 30 years after Return of the Jedi ends. And Luke and Han and Leia all play small minor parts in this other adventure that happens 30 years later, but it's not part of the same overall story and events that the first six movies encompass. It could have been. And to be fair, if Rise of Skywalker went in a different direction, I think it actually would have even delivered the way Force Awakens and Last Jedi happened. It could have stuck the landing. But Force Awakens and Last Jedi were weird, good but weird, and then Rise of Skywalker just completely craps the bed, and so the whole trilogy falls apart. And one of the reasons is because the way this final scene with Rey and Kylo Ren happens, it's we see Kylo Ren, who was literally just abused and tormented throughout this whole trilogy. The only person who actually is a Skywalker in this trilogy, the only true Luke is there, but it's different, right?
That's different.
It's different. So the only star of this story that is a Skywalker is just abused, tossed to the side, treated like crap the whole story, which can be okay. But then at the end of the day, he just sacrifices himself. He's dead. The only impact he had on the quote Skywalker saga was aiding someone who isn't a Skywalker along until she steals his name in the last scene of the movie.
Yeah, which once again,
and it's like, how was this a Skywalker saga story? Are these Star Wars events that happened in the universe? Sure, that's fine. But are they part of the saga that is Skywalker? No. Are these 7, 8, and 9 of 9 parts? No way.
No, they're not. No, they're not. So, and I agree with you. And I'm just sitting back and I'm looking and I'm like, okay, to me, those rumors about her basically just beating the crap out of Palpatine in that first screening was actually true.
Yeah.
To me, I'm sitting here. I didn't have a problem with her hearing the voices of the Jedi. I thought that was a cool thing. But
It was the right idea.
Yeah, but my problem is, number one, she's not fighting a good enough villain for that. And number two, while they've shown her to be powerful, they haven't shown her to be that powerful.
Yeah.
They just
I think what they're trying to say is that in that moment, all of the Jedi put their power into her. That's why she says, I hate it, but that's why she says, I'm all the Jedi.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that only maybe in that moment does she become the one. What the movie's trying to say, I think it fails at this, but what it's trying to say is she's brought balance. Here she is bringing balance, just like Anakin did, and he even says that to her. Like, here's another balance prophecy Jedi. All of the Jedi are now that have their power within her. She says, I am all the Jedi. She defeats the ultimate evil, being Palpatine. And there she go. She just brought balance to the Force. That's what they're trying to say in like the most ineffective, bad way possible. To me, that's what it's trying to say.
And it's unfortunate because, once again, like I said, I love Daisy Ridley. I think she's awesome. I love John Boyega. I think he's awesome.
Yeah,
I even like
Adam Driver.
Yeah,
they're all great.
Driver. I love them, but they got stuck with the most horribly written bull crap that I could think of. And I'm sitting there, and when people got mad at John Boyega for roasting and basically throwing shade, I'm like, how dare you get mad at him of all people?
Yeah,
he has the right to do that because he got shaded for 3 films, and let's not pretend like people didn't want him to be Finn in the first place. So if anybody,
there was pushback. Yeah, it was stupid.
If anybody can throw shade, it's him, and he has the perfect reason because like he was pointless. There was so much promise and so much push in Force Awakens, and then he's just pretty much thrown to the wayside to the point where you're just like, okay, what was his purpose here? There was no purpose. And with Rey, I'm like, I love what they're doing with her, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't get the same feeling that I got with Luke that I'm supposed to get with her. I'm not getting that same feeling. So am I crazy?
Well, I think that the way I've thought about it, you know, since Rise of Skywalker ended is like, and you can look at it from the Rey or the Finn perspective or even other perspectives, but like if you look at it from Rey, who's like, you know, the protagonist in these movies, I think that she is, you know, ultimately she's a good character. Daisy Ridley's phenomenal. She brings a lot of life to her. And what I think I've seen is basically in all 3 different movies, there's 3 different versions of Rey, you know? And I think that if the entire trilogy was built around any of these 3 versions of Rey, I think the whole trilogy would have been great and she would have been a great character. But the problem is she's just, and to no fault of Daisy Ridley, she's just a broken character. It's just too inconsistent. Her journey, which is the journey that was supposed to carry the audience throughout the story, it just has no direction. Every single movie, it twists into another direction. It makes a bunch of 90-degree turns this way and that way throughout the whole story. So it doesn't feel like a straight path from this is our character's introduction and beginning. Here's her middle part to her journey where she hopefully fails and has to learn some lessons, which she really doesn't. And then here's her conclusion when she overcomes her faults and her failures and becomes victorious, you know, whatever that means. And so, and they didn't really let her get there in a truthful way. It was a very like broken journey to try to get to like a satisfying conclusion. And they didn't really get there with Finn. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's why I was like, when you said they should have had Finn kill him, Finn do that, sacrifice himself, that would have made it for her.
Oh yeah.
If they would have did that, that would have made that, because then you can have me truly believe she forced herself to train that much harder because she just lost the first person that meant something to her.
Yeah.
Period. And she would have felt when he died and she would have got pissed. And that would have made me believe that, okay, she's training harder. She's going harder because at this point, to hell with you, Kylo, you got to go.
Yeah, you got to go.
And that, to me, that would have made more sense than what they wound up doing.
It would have felt more genuine. I think they tried to give her anger in a fake way by saying, she's a Palpatine, so she's angry. Like that's instead of like you lost someone you cared about. It's like, you're now related to this bad guy, so I guess that's why you're angry. That's like what they did.
A
And
bad
with
guy that you
Finn,
don't even know.
that you don't even know. With Finn, we can't forget with Finn in this movie, in Rise of Skywalker, they did try to bring back the force sensitive thing,
Yeah,
but the problem is it was just too little too late.
yeah.
I think that with the Rise of Skywalker, all of the plot threads, I mean, literally everything in the movie, to tell you the truth, I think could have been a good way to end the movies if the middle chapter was more consistent. Like, and it's even a movie that I like, was The Last Jedi, but we know it was made by a different person, so it's not consistent. It butts heads with the other two movies, and so it basically ends up becoming wasted time. That whole movie is wasted time, where different events could have happened that would have organically carried the plot beats of Rey being a Palpatine, of Lando being introduced, of Finn being force sensitive, of meeting Janna and other stormtroopers and helping them, of Rose becoming a more fleshed out character. Like, it just could have gotten there and made more sense if the middle chapter was made to feel natural with these other two movies. But because it's not, that the whole 2 hours of The Last Jedi, even though I really like the movie for the most part, it's literally just wasted time because of how the Rise of Skywalker played out. Now, to be fair, what I would have preferred, though, is if The Last Jedi stayed the same and if just a different version of Episode 9 was made. I mean, that kept going those plot threads instead. That would have been the better option. But since we got Rise of Skywalker the way it is, it makes The Last Jedi a wasted 2 hours in our story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. That's why I was like, I overall, the sequel trilogy, I love and I hate it at the same time.
Yeah. Should we try to say some positive things about Rise of Skywalker, as hard as it is, before we end? Like,
I can't say anything positive about it, but I can say this. But I can't say this, because what I want to do is I want to talk just one thing that I think that can help them moving forward. And well, there's a couple things I think that can help them moving forward. One, if you don't have this is what I love about Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel does not have a love interest in it. The movie just works. You don't have to have a love interest in a movie. Case in point, Aquaman has a love interest in it. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
If the movie doesn't leave that out, it's fine. This trilogy, you didn't need it, because one, you didn't set it up, and two, the story that you was trying to craft did not require one. Now, the original trilogy, yeah, it did, because they were setting up Han and Leia for, that. But this didn't require any of that, so why did you do it? Secondly, I think they should use Disney Plus to their advantage and be like, okay, you know what? If we're gonna do these movies, we need to make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's. If we need to make up a series that just has some little background stuff to it, then we can do a Disney Plus series with 4 episodes that goes into what we're trying to craft next.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I like that.
That way, because the problem is, like you said, like they do stuff, but then they put it in a comic. Everybody don't read comics.
Yeah.
So, unless you're a comic book fan or you're a fan of the Star Wars comic book series, you're not going to know none of that extra stuff. But you have Disney Plus now, so you don't have the luxury or the excuse to say, okay, Leo, man, we couldn't do this and this, or we put it in this. No, you need to put it 2, 3 episodes, 4 episodes. I don't care. Put it in a series. And that way you can flesh this stuff out a little bit better. So we as the viewers can have a little bit better closure.
Yeah.
Than what we got when y'all did this, because this is rushed, this is inconsistent, and you did not nail the landing.
It breaks my heart, man. It really, I mean, I'm the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, and it just breaks my heart.
Yeah. But I have hope, because I'm like, dude, you know what? When I saw The Mandalorian, it gave me hope. When I saw Clone Wars Season 7 and how they did that, it gave me hope. I'm like, okay, I got hope now. Because if you got, especially with Iger straight up telling Star Wars, Lucasfilm, look, Kevin Feige's coming over, and he's just gonna make sure y'all stay on task.
Yeah, he's gonna keep you right.
Yeah, with that, I'm like, yeah, because you need somebody that's going to say, okay, yeah, we may have a bad film, we may have one bad film, we may have two bad films, but we're leading towards something. Trust me, we're going to nail the landing.
Yeah.
And we're going to stay on point. So whatever director comes in, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Then you're going to be gone. Creative differences. We're going to be gone because we got to stay on. We got to stay on task. We can't jump off task because you want to do what you want to do.
Yeah,
we're not doing that because now they've admitted that they're going to have to win fans back. They are.
They know it. They know.
Yeah. So one, you don't have to, and also you don't have to have to put a trilogy on everything. If your story only covers 2 films, that's fine. We're not going to get mad.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we just want good. I know I just want a good story at this point.
Well, I think that moving on from what they're dubbing the Skywalker saga, even though we don't like what Disney tried to do with it, moving on from it kind of frees them up in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
For better and worse, because I think that the moving on from it is something that they wanted to do, and I think that that's also what led them to make Rise of Skywalker the way they did. Because the movie feels like just like a rushed thing to just be like, okay, let's just get this done. The whole movie feels to me like JJ and Disney are saying, let's just get this done. There was no passion behind it. It wasn't made from the perspective of we care about these characters and we care about the story and we care about the audience feeling something. They just cared about, okay, wrap this crap up. Let's move on because there's too much baggage with the Skywalker saga. We want to start building our own universe away from it. And so I think that perspective hurt the Rise of Skywalker, but I think it could help them going forward. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's to me, that's probably the best and worst thing that could happen because look, we've always said this. I know I've always said this, that the Star Wars universe is ginormous. There are more people, there are more Force users than just the Skywalkers. So let's start talking about other people. But please keep in mind, the reason why people love sci-fi, especially like Star Trek and Star Wars, is because we get to see things we don't see on Earth. Yeah, you might have the same themes, but we're doing it on a different planet with different beings.
Well, and that's another place where, we talked about how the sequel I don't like to call it the sequel trilogy. I call it the Disney trilogy.
The Disney trilogy.
That's what I call it.
Yeah, that's what it is. So
it is what it is. They're not sequels. It's just a Disney trilogy. And we talked about where the Disney trilogy really kind of missed an opportunity with alien races. I think it also missed an opportunity with the exact thing you're talking about. And it's why the Lucas movies, and especially the prequel trilogy, because the technology was there, those movies are coloring its universe with so many different planets and locations, wild stuff that is just totally out there to look at, crazy alien races, that are populating its worlds. And so basically there's just the imagination of one person is just bursting off of the screen. And these movies, while they did, they're more modern. So the effects, the seamless blend of like practical effects and digital backgrounds and practical backgrounds, the blending of that is a lot more efficient nowadays because it's been 20 years since the prequel trilogy. Yeah. I still think that it doesn't have the imagination, right? There's no imagination in any of these 3 movies. And that is to me, that's super antithetical to Star Wars. The visual language of Star Wars, per George Lucas's own words, is very important. He's described them as silent visual novels. Like, it's one of the reasons why, and to his own admission, the dialogue might not be the best, right? Because it's not so much about the dialogue, it's about the story, because the story of the movies is different than the words the characters say, right? Those are 2 different things.
Yeah.
And so maybe the words that they say aren't always the best, like we can admit it and he'll admit it, but the story and the decisions the characters make are there. And you can, with all 6 of his movies, again, especially the prequels, you can kind of watch them with like no dialogue, just the music and the visuals, and you still know what's happening. And you can feel it because it's so visually told to you. And these new movies, they do look pretty. I'm not going to deny it. They do look pretty, but they don't look imaginative. And I don't think that the visuals tell you a story the way the original 6 did.
Yeah, because obviously J.J. Abrams is not a student of Akira Kurosawa like George Lucas was.
No, Exactly. Lucas and Kurosawa were friends. They
Yeah.
actually had a lot of dinners and lunches and stuff together because Lucas was such a huge fan.
Yeah, that was like Akira. If you go back and watch those old 1950s Akira Kurosawa movies, you'll be like, wow, this dude, especially the samurai stuff.
Badass, man.
Man.
Oh, it's so freaking good.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen this is a slight detraction. Have you ever seen oh, I'm forgetting the movie now. Is it called 13 Warriors?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That's super inspired by Kurosawa, but it's a little bit more modern. It was made about 7 or 8 years ago. Freaking phenomenal, bro.
Yeah.
Such a good movie.
That movie, the way they shot, the way the scenes were shot,
the emotion, the honor of samurais just on full display. Freaking great movie.
And that's where, and I think that's the kind of thing that kind of killed it for this trilogy as well. Was just that, like you said, wasn't any imagination, and on top of that, it's like, y'all like Lucas, but I think how you guys like Lucas is actually, you don't have the imagination that he has, so you're trying to stay true to what he does, but you don't have your own imagination about it.
Yeah.
Like,
Simon,
Lucas likes
do you know who Simon Pegg is?
Yeah. Love Simon Pegg.
Okay, yeah, you know Simon Pegg. He was he had like a small part as what's his name in Force Awakens. He's friends with JJ. Yeah. And so he was, back in the prequel days, he was very against him. He was he was very vocal,
very vocal about it.
Yeah, too vocal in my opinion. I was just I love the guy, but I was like, shut up, dude. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And so but it's fine. Like, no one has to like the movies. You don't have to like a movie you don't like, but it's about how you treat it and how you talk about it. He was a little, because he's a public figure, I think he was too vocal about it, unfortunately, but that's whatever. That was 20 years ago. However, he obviously liked his friend's movie, The Force Awakens, and he was even in it, but he was on a podcast after The Last Jedi came out, and he actually talked about how when he came out of The Last Jedi, that he didn't outright slam the movie because he was trying to be like kind of
nice.
Kind. Yeah, he's trying to be nice. But he's basically like, I walked out of that movie and I immediately thought, I actually kind of miss George Lucas now. And he didn't really before. He obviously still loves George because he created Star Wars, but he didn't like the prequel era version of George. But coming out of Last Jedi, he's like, I miss George. I miss that man's crazy imagination. Star Wars needs it. So even he came around once he started to see how the Disney trilogy wasn't delivering on the creativity and the imagination that made Star Wars what it is.
Yeah,
he saw it too.
Yeah, if you're being honest with yourself, I believe if you're being honest with yourself especially if you're a movie going fan, if you're being honest with yourself, you're like, dude, it kind of misses that. It misses that guiding hand. Like, it's a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Yeah, we know that. But there's a certain amount of imagination and creativity that goes into something, and it's like you know it when you don't feel it. If you can't feel it, you just can't feel it. Like, the reason why a lot of people love the Lord of the Rings and love the Marvel stuff and even the DC stuff is because they feel a certain way. It connects with them with a certain way when they leave that theater.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why Black Panther made $1.4 billion.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, because you go in and you feel a certain way and you're like, I got to go watch this again. Like, I normally watch Star Wars films at least 3 times in the theater just to show 1 time to show my support, 2 times to get the dialogue and lore, the 3rd time just because I'm an action junkie. Rise of Skywalker I watched once.
Man, yeah. I think a lot of people did.
I'm like, I'm not going back to see this. Yeah. I'm not.
I will shamefully admit I did see it 3 times. But it was a very different reason than all the multiple viewings I saw of the other movies, because going back to the prequel era, I saw each movie at least 3 times. I saw Phantom Menace and Force Awakens and Last Jedi 4 times each. Mm-hmm. With Rise of Skywalker, the reason I saw it 3 times was not because I love seeing Star Wars movies in the movie theater like it was the other times. It was because I was confused. And internally, I felt so lost. And I was like, I kind of needed to reevaluate is what I did. So literally, I saw it, the opening day, the Thursday night previews, like saw the first showing. And obviously was like, I didn't know what life was. I was so confused about everything. And because I was so lost about how I felt about it, the very next day I went to see another showing by myself. The first night was with a bunch of friends and my fiance and all that stuff. The very next day, that following Friday, or maybe it would have been Saturday. Maybe I had to wait a day. I can't remember. Either that Friday or Saturday. I went again. I was like, just by myself, just a midday showing. It's the new Star Wars movie. It's the last one ever. I gotta understand why I don't feel good about this movie. And I saw it again, sat there by myself with my popcorn, and I grasped a lot more. I was like, yeah, I see where the problems are. And then the third time was because I wanted my fiance to see it again, because she's also invested. She knows the stuff. She's a nerd like we are. She's a big Star Wars fan. So I was like, okay, hon, like I saw it twice. It's whack. And I know you don't like it either, but let's go see it again so I can talk to you after you've seen it a second time, which gave me a third viewing. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
And so so I saw this movie 3 times, not because I loved it and had to see it, but because I needed to try to figure out why it wasn't good. It was just such a different experience seeing this movie in the theater.
And that's a sad feeling to have. No one was
very sad.
Yeah. But like I said, I am hopeful. I'm very hopeful for the future because, like I said, with Disney Plus, you have a way to interact with your stories and your world now that you didn't have previous. And on top of that, just seeing what they did with Mandalorian, I'm like, that's what you need to do. Let's start talking about other stuff.
It's the right direction. Yeah.
Let's just start talking about other stuff. George Lucas made this world this big for a reason. Start talking about other stuff.
Yeah.
Just start talking about other stuff. And for God's sakes, use the expanded universe.
Yeah. Jeez. Well, I think they're trying though. I think that they're trying, to be fair. And I mean, I still think the first and foremost, they should have delivered on the sequels. And so they have the biggest L in the history of humanity, in my opinion.
Yeah, for
not delivering on that. That being said, if we try to be semi-optimistic going forward, I think they're trying. In the novel space, they're introducing what they're calling the High Republic, which is like the new expanded version of what was the Old Republic. That's exciting. I'm into the idea. Like the covers of these novels look great. I think it looks like they're going to try to do the right stuff there. And I'm excited with what they're probably going to try to do with movies in a couple of years. I think taking a break from theatrical films is the smartest things they can do. And it's the best play. In fact, I think they should wait longer than they're planning to, but at the end of the day, that's fine. It's about money. At least they're going to wait 4 or 5 years. I think they should wait a full decade, but that's fine.
Like do the Disney Plus stuff, but just wait on the movies. Set the Disney Plus stuff up.
Exactly. Yeah. Keep doing novels, comics, and Disney Plus shows, but the theatrical movies wait a decade. But whatever. And then we also can't forget something that could really help save them is if Obi-Wan is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. That to me is Cassian Andor. Oh my God. What is his name? Cassian Andor.
Cassian Andor. Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be fine. I don't care about it, but we don't care about him. Yeah. I mean, we're going to watch it, but we don't really care. Right. But Obi-Wan, that matters. And there's rumors Hayden's coming back. So maybe flashbacks, maybe he's going to fight Vader. If they deliver on if Obi-Wan delivers and brings us back to that feeling, it's going to be a huge benefit and it's going to be a huge way to win people back. If that, and you know what? I think it's going to deliver too. I feel good about it.
I mean, 8 episodes. Yeah. You got enough time to deliver for us. So we good.
Yeah. We good.
We good. We good. But that's going to do it for this therapy session. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. What did you think about the entirety of that trilogy? Are you hopeful for the future of the Star Wars legacy? And just leave a comment, let us know, and we will catch you guys on our next vid. Peace out, peeps.
Later.